The conference room was built for performance, glass walls, long walnut table. City skyline stretching behind my sister like a curated backdrop. She stood at the front beside a polished screen, displaying growth projections in clean blue bars. I sat halfway down the table with a legal pad and a pen I'd owned longer than the company had been public. Phase 3 will double our footprint in under 18 months. My sister said smoothly. Assuming the capital infusion lands as expected. It would have sounded impressive to anyone who didn't know the assumptions beneath it. I did. My father leaned back in his chair, satisfied. This is what bold leadership looks like. He glanced at me briefly, almost as an afterthought. When I asked a question about cash flow timing during the downturn scenarios, my sister smiled. The kind of smile meant for children interrupting adult conversations. Stick to your little side jobs, she said lightly. Leave business to professionals. A few board members shifted uncomfortably. My father didn't, he nodded. Let's not overcomplicate things. I lowered my pen and wrote one sentence on my pad in steady, contingency exposure exceeds tolerance. The $85 million expansion capital she referenced so confidently wasn't bank debt. It wasn't a public offering, it was my fund. 3 years ago, I had built a private equity vehicle quietly, small acquisitions, conservative positioning, reinvested gains. I never announced it at family dinners because it was dismissed as consulting or dabbling. When my sister needed capital to accelerate her expansion, her advisors approached my firm. They didn't know I was the principal until diligence began. I didn't advertise it then either. The capital commitment was contingent on governance standards and board conduct. Professional conduct. I looked around the table. Several independent directors were already uneasy. The projections assumed uninterrupted market stability and aggressive vendor concessions. My sister continued confidently. Funding is secured. Legal documentation is in final draft. It was, but final draft is not finalized. My phone rested beside my notebook. I didn't hide it. I typed one message. Withdraw entire 85M commitment effective immediately. Governance breach. Initiate formal notice. My investment director responded within seconds. Confirmed. Notice is deplored. I placed my phone face down and resumed taking notes. 2 minutes later, the CFO's tablet vibrated. He glanced at it, frowned slightly, then looked again. Another notification. He cleared his throat. Excuse me, he said carefully. We've just received a formal withdrawal notice from. He stopped when he saw the sender. My sister's smile faltered. From who? She asked. From Ardent Capital. The room shifted. That's impossible, she said quickly. We finalized that. The CFO looked uncertain. The notice states the commitment is revoked pending governance review. Effective immediately. My father straightened. What review? I kept my expression neutral. The company counsel's phone buzzed next. He scanned the message and spoke with quiet precision. The withdrawal appears compliant with the contingency clauses in Section 4B. They have the right to revoke prior to final execution. My sister turned toward me slowly. Do you know anything about this? She asked. Yes, I said. Silence settled in layers. You're Ardent. One of the directors asked carefully. I am. My father blinked, as if recalculating a number he hadn't expected. This is retaliation, my sister said sharply. It's risk management. I replied. You're pulling 85 million because I told you to stick to side jobs. No, I said evenly. I'm pulling 85 million because public dismissal of a funding principal during a live board session reflects governance instability. The independent directors avoided eye contact. You're sabotaging expansion. She pressed. I'm protecting capital. My father's voice lowered. You could have raised concerns privately. I did, I said. 3 times. In writing, the CFO spoke again, subdued. Without that capital, the expansion cannot proceed as structured. Emergency alerts continued to trickle across devices, legal confirmations, compliance acknowledgements, banking verifications. No one shouted. No one pounded the table. But the confidence that had filled the room minutes earlier dissolved. One of the directors leaned forward. Perhaps we should revisit the assumptions. My sister looked at me as if seeing me for the first time. You'd really jeopardize growth over pride. This isn't about pride, I said. It's about fiduciary responsibility. The meeting adjourned early. As board members filed out quietly, my father remained seated. "You've been building this without telling us," he said. "Why?" I considered that. "Because every time I mentioned scale, it was called a hobby." He didn't respond. Outside the glass walls, the city continued as if nothing had shifted. Inside, it had. I gathered my notebook and stood. "I'm open to renegotiating under revised governance terms," I said calmly. "Submit a revised plan." Without assumptions. My sister didn't argue. For the first time in years, she didn't dismiss me either. There was no applause, no victory speech. Just a recalibration. When I stepped into the elevator, my phone buzzed again, confirmation that the funds were secured back into our primary holdings. Power doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it waits to be questioned, and then it answers.